Hello everyone, and welcome to the newest video in our 5-part. Hey, welcome to the next video in our Analyzing Literature video series. In this video we're going to talk about how to break down examples of diction. But just like when you're trying to break down a passage, the first thing you got to do is find what you're looking for. So let's talk about how to find a good example of diction. Now, one interesting phenomenon I've noticed since I've been teaching is that if I point out a sentence and I ask the students to find the strongest example of diction in that sentence, almost everyone in the room will pick the same word. Why is that important? Well, it tells me one thing. When directed, students can identify strong word choice. They just need to learn to be able to find powerful sentences to work with. So that's your first goal. Find a powerful sentence that you feel might have some strong word choice, and then ask yourself, what is the strongest word in that sentence? Because as a reminder, diction is strong, intentional word choice. It's where the author chooses a word with particular intention and a particular desired effect. What is the effect that the author was trying to achieve with that particular word? As I was reading Of Mice and Men, this particular passage stuck out to me as significant, and I thought it might give me something to work with. And it says, it's at the very end of chapter 1, and it says, "The red light dimmed on the coals. Up the hill from the river, a coyote yammered, and a dog answered from the other side of the stream. The sycamore leaves whispered in a little night breeze." I look at this passage and I see that there's some possible depth here. So I've got to try to find words that I think are significant. And two words that stuck out to me were yammered and answered. One thing I noticed was that there are two figures in this quote. There's the coyote and there's the dog. And there are two figures in chapter 1 of Mice and Men. There's Lenny and there's George. So I thought to myself, that can't be a coincidence. And there's also the fact that a coyote and a dog are very different from each other. And Lenny and George are also very different from each other. So that brought me to these verbs. The coyote yammers and the dog answers. And I thought to myself, Steinbeck has to have a point in this passage and with these verbs. So that brings me to the next step. I have to think about the author's intention in using that particular word, or in my case, those particular words. I've got to think about what effect the author's trying to create. For me, yammering is kind of a senseless series of sounds. They're not organized or logical, but answering tends to be more logical. So the coyote yammers and the dog answers. Well, a coyote is wild, untamed, and a dog is able to exist in society. Well, this would obviously be George, and that would obviously be Lenny, because Lenny could not survive in society by himself. He doesn't understand the rules. A dog, on the other hand, doesn't understand the rules. So, why the word yammered? Well, the word yammered indicates this lack of sense and logic, because that's Lenny. He lacks common sense. He lacks logic. He can't think through things. He just reacts totally based on instinct, like a coyote. George, on the other hand, can answer because he's logical. He has sense. And a dog, while a dog can be overwhelmed by its instinct, we also train dogs to not always listen to their instincts. I can put a treat in front of a dog and say, stay, and if I've done a good job training him, he won't take the treat, even though his instinct is telling him to. Well, George is more like that. So these two words, yammered and answered, I could explain how Steinbeck had particular intentions, symbolic intentions in this case, in his use of those words. Now, my example from Of Mice and Men is not unique. I guarantee you there are hundreds of options for diction in your book. You just have to find them, and you have to think about them. But all good books have intentional word choice by the author. Every sentence in a good book has intentional word choice by the author. You just have to learn to identify it. And that takes practice, but the only way to practice is to try to do it. And that's all I have for you today. Enderman out.